All right, I think we can start already. So again, good afternoon. I'm Alexa, a fellow from the Circular Cities Fellowship Program and your host for today. Firstly, thank you for making time on this December afternoon to join us on the second and last roundtable discussion this year on It's Giving Impact, Blending Social Entrepreneurship and Impact First Investing, hosted by the Climate Action Lab, Circular Cities Fellowship Program, and CirClub from the Asian Institute of Management. So we started with a brown bag discussion back in August 19, 2024 on planning circular cities and economies. And today we're capping off the year to discuss important levers to the pursuit of sustainability. So the rounds of discussions actually began as a capstone requirement in the concentration impact first investing, but our team discovered that the conversation in this space needs to continue even beyond our journey as students. So now without further ado, I'd like to turn over the virtual stage to Ms. Maria Liza Lamanilao Evangelista, Associate Director of the Circular Cities Fellowship Program, for the opening remarks. Lisa?
Good afternoon, everyone. We are so thrilled to welcome all of you to this roundtable discussion entitled It's Giving Impact, Blending Social Entrepreneurship and Impact First Investing. This exciting initiative is brought to you by Climate Action Lab, Club 22, and the Circular Cities Fellowship Program in collaboration with two Impact First Investing capstone teams from the Master in Development Management 2024 cohort at the Asian Institute of Management. The main objective of this roundtable discussion this afternoon is to create an avenue for collaboration, encouraging the co-creation of innovative ideas while exploring how enterprises can achieve the triple bottom line through an impact-first investing and sustainable finance lens. I want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guests and resource persons this afternoon who will be introduced shortly. We also appreciate, of course, the presence of all our invited attendees. You may be currently an entrepreneur or planning to be one, or a current or a future investor, or someone committed to driving social and environmental change for a better future. Whichever you are, today's discussion will provide valuable insights into balancing profitability with creating a positive social and environmental impact. Together, we will explore this afternoon how to merge profit with our vision for a more equitable world, making a difference not only in financial terms, but for people and the planet as well. Again, welcome to everyone.
So thank you very much, VM Lisa, for the warm welcome. Today's discussion, again, will be less a lecture and more a conversation. And now it's time for us to introduce our guest panelists. Valerie, a fellow also of the Circular Cities Fellowship Program, will introduce our guest panelists.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, guests, fellow change makers, good afternoon. We are very honored to have with us three distinguished speakers who are leaders in their respective fields, specifically in sustainable finance, impact-first investing, and social entrepreneurship, each bringing a wealth of knowledge and experience to this afternoon's discussion. Allow me to introduce our speakers. Our first speaker serves as the head of the Washington CSIP Graduate School of Business and the executive director of the Governor Jose B. Fernandez Jr. Center for Sustainable Finance at the Asian Institute of Management. He is also a member of Fair Finance Asia Advisory Committee. Prior to his return to the Philippines in 2017, he had amassed 34 years of experience in banking. He spent 22 years at the Business Development Bank of Canada in Vancouver. His background also includes experience in syndicated lending and trade financing in both the Philippines and Hong Kong. Sir, he is a Canadian certified public accountant and certified management accountant and holds a Bachelor of Science in Agribusiness Management from the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. He earned a Master's of Science in International Banking and Financial Studies and completed his PhD in Management at the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland, specializing in international business, with his dissertation focusing on sustainable lending. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Professor Felipe Calderon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our second speaker is a director at Exchange, an impact investor and incubator for high-potential early-stage social enterprises in the Philippines. With over a decade of experience in social development, innovation, and entrepreneurship, he is passionately committed to advancing social equity and eradicating poverty through education and culture. At Exchange, she works closely with a diverse portfolio of social enterprises across industries such as renewable energy, education, agriculture, sustainable fashion, and more. She supports entrepreneurs in strategy, operations, financial modeling, and investment readiness, while also mentoring enterprises through various programs. Her leadership extends to building ecosystems for impact enterprises, training incubators, and providing valuable feedback to social entrepreneurs. Friends, let's all welcome Ms. Love Gregory Perez. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Our third speaker is a dedicated advocate for environmental issues and social justice. He is the CEO of Ignite Impact Fund PH, Hybridyne Consulting Inc., and a retired professor from the Asian Institute of Management. With over 36 years of experience in education and consulting, he is recognized for his expertise in strategic planning, business model innovation, social entrepreneurship, design thinking, business process reengineering, e-commerce, e-governance, among others. He is a prominent mentor in the Philippine startup ecosystem, where he has guided numerous aspiring entrepreneurs in their journey. His career has expanded both the public and private sectors, with significant contributions to software development and the information and communications technology industry. His commitment to fostering innovation and sustainability makes him a highly respected leader in his field. Let's all welcome Professor Gaston Titos D. Ortegas Jr.
Hello. Wow, thank you for prettifying my bio data.
Thank you, Sir Titos. Thank you, Professor Calderon, and thank you for joining us, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So firstly, welcome to our panel speakers. And we have a very, very we look forward to a very rich discussion this afternoon. So today's discussion is, again, more a conversation rather than just a lecture for us. So we'll ask questions and each panel member will have the opportunity to share and their thoughts and respond to the other speakers or even ask questions. So feel free to throw questions to your fellow panelists as well. The audience is also welcome to share their questions through the Zoom chat, and we have a dedicated Q&A period in the last 15 minutes of this session. So let's begin this afternoon's discussion. So perhaps before we begin anything else, we'd like to hear more about the experiences, the wealth of experiences coming from our speakers, and how they see sustainable finance and impact first investing to be connected to each other. And you can share more about your experience on impact first investing and social entrepreneurship as well. So anybody among our speakers can begin. Yeah. Prof. Felipe, would you like to start po? Since you're already unmuted. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Age before beauty.
So we cannot do lecture, right? Just
Yeah. Conversation po, Prof.
okay. So my background is more on sustainable finance, rather than although I think there is a huge overlap between sustainable finance and impact first investing. So I learned with sustainable finance in working with the Business Development Bank of Canada. We were doing environmental assessment even when I joined them in 1994. What I see is that both sustainable finance and impact investing almost the same goal, right? Is trying to drive positive change, social change. Maybe the only a slight difference is, first, sustainable finance is looking at the operations of the whole company, making sure that financial viability is also there. Triple bottom line. People, planet, profit. So it's not enough just to hug a tree. Make sure that you're wearing a Rolex when you're hugging a tree. That it's still profit. There is that balance, right? That's how I see it. And in my job in Canada, I have encountered many applicants who would be very passionate about what they're trying to do, the positive change, social and environment. But you need the profitability, the financial viability should be balanced. That's how I see it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Prof. Felipe. Maybe Miss Greg or Prof. Titas? Yeah.
I will defer to experience. Envy. Rolex hugging a tree. Okay yun, Felipe. I love that.
See, I can go next. Sorry, I had to separate the video and the audio. So can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All good. Okay. No, yeah. So I've been in impact investing since 2014. So before that, I worked with a social enterprise where I was executive director. And then before that, I worked with a grassroots NGO in microfinance and livelihood. So in the way we think about it at Exchange, impact first investing is really somebody has to underwrite the risk of early stage social enterprises that are trying something new. So again, if you're new and you're innovative, and so at this point, the business models are not set yet. You don't know if you will find product market fit, product solution fit. I mean, so many unknowns, so many risks, and especially if you're working at the grassroots, at the last mile, right? So what we've seen in impact investing, and this is a whole spectrum, right? So impact first is really at the more the higher risk appetite side of it. The ones that are kind of in the middle are looking for enterprises that already have shown profitability or at least a positive cash flow. Where we play is really much earlier so that we can take on that risk and hence impact first with the bet that if it works, then we can recover our capital and maybe get our return. If it doesn't work, then we lose our money. And that's kind of the mindset or the understanding. But I read a quote in a book before where it said investors are as important as inventors, because you might have the invention, but if you don't have the money to actually fund it, then it doesn't go anywhere, right? But the investors are the ones that take the risk. And if they choose that particular invention, then that has a greater fighting chance in the marketplace. And so that's kind of how we see it. The way I understand the relationship with sustainable finance is still along the spectrum on the ESG side, the triple bottom line as mentioned earlier. On our side, on the impact first, it's really proving these models and potentially looking for solutions that are not only addressing the symptoms, but are looking to make a more systemic change so that we change the way everything works. And I guess just as a last point, we're very particular about scale in terms of, people talk about scaling deep, scaling wide. The important thing is we prove business models that then people can look to and say, okay, that works. And then that's how we change the way things are being done. Because otherwise, it's business as usual, right? It's exploitative, it's extractive. Because people think, oh, sustainability is expensive. If we pay the proper wage, that's expensive. But if we prove otherwise that we can have that, then business models will shift. And that's why we need to scale. Because if you stay in one small place, then the rest of the world doesn't know that you exist, right? So there.
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Greg. How about you, Prof. Titas? Prof. Titas, I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Listening to Felipe and Greg is like they mentioned all the challenges we are trying to face. But first context, I represent the local arm of a fund, right? A startup impact investing fund. And over the past 3 years during the pandemic, they've been struggling with this question of, is there really, at least from my point of view, is there really a clear line that divides impact first and what they might call finance first. At least if you use the Gene framework. uh, right. So the local arm, which is started many years ago, helping bring their inventions, as Greg mentioned, bring their inventions to the market. And then just before the lockdown, group of our principals from strange backgrounds to me decided, well, let us try to start up an impact investing fund that is solely focused on the Philippines, right? And interestingly, only one of them is a Filipino. The other three are, shall we say, dyed in the wool Americans. But my passion started when I was in high school in the US, and we were sent to a 2-week immersion in a kibbutz. And a kibbutz that was in the US, not in Israel, somewhere north of Boston. And that's where I became a tree hugger without a Rolex, believe it.
Not
So I was, environment was something for only those weird people, right? But fortunately, I think in my experience in AIM, I happened to be part of a team that designed the original Master in Development Management way back in the late 80s. And then 10 years later, I became part of a team that designed the entrepreneurship program at the AIM. So God was guiding me in the right direction to where I am now. And then very quickly, a group in the MDM, in the entrepreneurship program, decided to look into this issue of social entrepreneurship. So I thought I was in the right place. Always be thankful to those faculty members and the deans then for making me part of those teams. So as I joined this group, this local arm of Ignite, I said, well, what can I contribute? So all those years mentoring business, MBA, as Felipe is the boss now of the Graduate School of Business, entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs. And then I ran into a fellow called Tony Meloto, who for some reason liked me and engaged me to be part of the scaling up of the Enchanted Farm in Bulacan, where he had a totally different to social entrepreneurship, as I think many of you know. And in all of those experiences, still I have my question is, how do we establish or catalyze an ecosystem in the Philippines, which will take this high risk, as Greg mentioned? Obviously not by themselves. I don't think there is any existing, although Bill Grow and Exchange have, I think, really started this, where different investors, institutional as well as individuals, can collaborate. Basically, they can syndicate a fund, right? Risk is shared. I thought this was an awesome initiative. And so we joined them, and hopefully we can be part of that. And then our own challenge is related to this. How do we increase the quality of these wannabe social or impact focus entrepreneurs who are coming from business school or from social sciences or from tech, right? Very tech oriented or very science focused. How can we put these together without forcing them to be what they are not? Like scientists, they just want to invent. very few, at least in our work with the USD, even care to be entrepreneurs. Right? So there must be a way to monetize their invention when indeed their invention goes to market. I think different universities around the world have established some example models for that. Then there is the entrepreneur. He might be a tech guy. He doesn't know how to deal with communities, right? And so when he pitches to us, Coco has got a wonderful passion, passionate, very heartfelt goal of helping communities, but he doesn't know how to work with communities. Then you have the social scientists or social background. They're full of passion, but have no idea how to make a business model. So our experience has been they come to us coming from these different backgrounds. And basically, we struggle with how do we get them to a point where they are both socially impactful, clearly, and you can see the social impact clearly in their business model, how they are innovating relationships, supply chains, material sourcing, etc. That will actually at least be neutral to the environment, but at best actually reverse many of the vicious cycles that have to do with environment and social injustice. No? So this is startup na kami, tapos puro startup pa yung tinutulungan namin. Do we know how to help them by ourselves? We don't. And we can't do it, right? By ourselves. So I think that's the reason why I was thankful to the MDM for inviting us to participate in this, but more so in the Impact Lab aspect of MDM. So what we are trying to do, okay, we want to establish ourselves as a useful member of this ecosystem of people like Felipe and others. As a startup ourselves. So we have many hypotheses that we still have to validate. And again, I thought was very helpful.
Yes, and for sure, Prof. Titos, it seems like this afternoon will be a good afternoon to discuss all of this. But definitely, there might be some things that we won't be able to touch on today, but this won't be the last for sure. Definitely. But as I was listening
Thank you, and I'm sorry for the long.
No, Prof, it's okay. Actually, this is really the space for us all to just be able to come together and discuss this. And we're very thankful for the wealth of experiences that each of our speakers bring to the table. And in fact, as I was listening a while ago, I think it shed light to, it's like a spectrum, basically. So you have sustainable finance looking at the triple bottom line. You have a Rolex hugging a tree. And at the same time, you have impact first investing, where we learned in class that it's actually an intentional investment done for social and environmental impact, but there can be below market, but the returns can be below market rate. So in effect, like the riskiest among all would be impact first investing, but sustainable finance as a framework in itself is looking at the way to balance all of this as well. So from that discussion, we can see that the goal is very clear. We really need to hit the triple bottom line, the social, the environment, and as much as possible, the financial impact also has to be there because it's critical for the sustainability. What's interesting further is that many years ago, this concept of the triple bottom line is just a framework, something that's theoretical. And perhaps we'd like to hear coming from our speakers, like from the years that you've been practicing here in this ecosystem, as Prof. Titos was also mentioning, and from Prof. Felipe's 34 years of being in this industry, and even from Ms. Greg as being part of Exchange, what were the good practices that you've seen that were practiced both in sustainable finance and impact first investing so that we can achieve the goal of the triple bottom line? And I think a while ago we were also able to mention some challenges, but maybe you can enlighten us a bit more about the nature of these challenges. So both good practices and then the challenges. So again, anybody from the room can take this on first. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll start with the best practices that I have learned throughout the years. So in sustainable finance, actually, I call it, I have this phrase, sustainability and sustainable finance are two sides of the same coin. Because why is this? Sustainable finance, actually, if done properly, a company that practices sustainability would
Mhm.
actually enjoy a lower interest rate. I mean, that's how it was. We have normally banks as a risk rating model when they look at the borrowers. So there's management, financials, marketing, strategy. But normally that's the traditional. But sustainable finance now adds ESG, environment, social, in the pricing, in the analysis. So if there's a good score in the ESG portion, then it will reward the company with the lower interest rate.
Mm.
If it's not that good, then it will be higher interest rates. So talk about incentivizing, right? And that's why I said it's sustainability is the two sides of the same coin, because now, to put it very honestly, a company will have to a borrower will have to demonstrate environmental and social responsibility and practices in order to get a loan and a better rate. So, and that's how I saw it in Canada, where it basically influences corporate behavior. Right? It drives corporate behavior because everybody understands lower interest rate. And then and sustainability it's not expensive actually, because now you get a lower interest rate, and one lens of sustainability, it's about minimizing waste, minimizing energy consumption, water consumption. At the end of the day, we are a graduate school of business. It results in better profits if you look at it that way. Those are I guess what I can share. Thank you.
Okay. So it's really about the ESG component po, no? Parang you're measuring how to minimize waste, minimize the cost, and the use of energy. Prof. Titos, you wanted to say something about it?
Yeah, idol ko to si Felipe. Galing.
Yeah.
He puts it so simply. No, I'd like to follow up on that. Cost effectiveness, or from a business perspective, productivity, right? So how do you make the most out of the best resources? Like, for example, if you're a small, medium enterprise, let's say you're in manufacturing, your biggest challenge is supply chain cost and economy of scale, right? You're starting out, you have, you look to suppliers of whatever, packaging, whatever material, and you're faced with the challenge of very high minimum order quantity. Now, and then you're trying to achieve a social impact. How the heck can you do that? No? As Greg said, you want to pay at least a living wage, maybe first a living wage, which will raise them from below minimum wage. That's a high cost, right? Especially if it's in agri. And if Felipe, I think, can speak to this. It's from UPLB, my model agricultural college. But right? So the high cost, let's say, from agriculture, impact, social impact, agriculture based or agri-agra based entrepreneurs, ang laking cost that they have to mitigate. And that when we look at these kinds of enterprises, we say, okay, that's first thing I look, what's your innovation in the supply chain? Where are you going to get, say, clean materials or non-child labor based locations, or worse, in the Philippines, in conflict areas, no? Ang hirap, no? So, and this is a challenge. Maybe one or two kids from just straight out of college. How the heck can they come up with a viable pitch, let alone a proof of concept? So, ang taas ng risk, no? Being a social entrepreneur by itself is already triple bottom line, means triple
risk.
Challenges.
Yes.
Triple risk. So these people, they didn't know how to do that. They weren't taught that in high school. They weren't taught that in college. So the only place they learn it from people like Greg, when they happen to qualify to be seated or accelerated. No, that's the only time they learn it. And the problem is, of course, is a high fallout rate.
Yeah.
And we can only throw at them so many experts and so many mentors. And yet, the funding, the problem to me is that the funding cycle becomes very long. And therefore, from an investor point of view, that's too much friction. So,
Yeah.
so that's for me the existing state of things. But of course,
Mm-mm.
the psychic reward of working these people is like you can't beat it, right?
Mm-mm.
As Felipe said, you got to buy a Rolex, at least a nice watch or a smartwatch,
Mm-mm. Yeah.
right? But but I guess at my age, this is something I can really focus on
Mm-mm. Yeah.
working
Like to embrace
on.
that risk. Okay. I think Miss Greg
So,
also wanted to add to
thank
that. Yeah. Mm-mm.
Yeah, no, for me, so absolutely agree with what Prof. Felipe and Prof. Titos have said. No, I think definitely the ecosystem that needs to get built. I think we need to look at other markets to see what they're doing. Our financial institutions are still very traditional here.
Yeah.
We're trying some things like the syndication nga, we're trying the guarantees
Mm-mm.
so that the ones that have a lower risk appetite, if there's a first loss guarantee, will that crowd in capital? So things like that, no? Parang we really need to come together as an ecosystem
Mm.
in terms of the financial institutions, but also the academe, teaching entrepreneurship,
Mm.
the corporate clients
Mm.
and the supply chain. I mean everything, because it's actually a business.
Yeah.
And that brings me to, one of the things that we're seeing really in terms of is the mindset of the entrepreneurs. We see that a lot of the entrepreneurs that are attracted to the space tend to have bleeding hearts. So parang hindi tayo pwedeng bleeding hearts, right? And they make things complicated for themselves.
Mm.
Parang if they're solving one problem, I did mention systems change, but that doesn't mean you do it all yourself. Kasi entrepreneurship is bringing resources to bear. Sinong pwede kang kapartner? Sinong gumagawa nito? You don't have to do everything. They want to solve 10 challenges and do it all at the same time and get it done by next year. We
Yeah.
need to focus. We
Yeah.
need to find product market fit. And then parang they come in. Sorry, naglabas ng no
No problem.
they come in na parang they have all the answers. One of the most common things that we say is customer discovery. Go to the market, go experiment, validate, ask. Same with the community. You cannot go into the community and say, oh, I have all the answers. You have to ask them, what have you done? What are your aspirations? I mean, it really is about communication. So, yun, parang kasi entrepreneurship nga, as mentioned, is really in itself very hard. And then you're trying to do this social thing pa, diba? So we need to get to revenue as soon as possible. Validate the model. So like kami as an investor, we don't ask year one, what's your impact? Have you doubled your impact? Have you tripled it? No. First, let's validate. Is there logic to your impact model? If it looks like there's logic, and if it looks like that the impact model is tied to the business model, then by logically, as the business scales, the impact will scale. So we're not worried about the impact at the outset. You have to build your economic engine. You have to build a team. You have to have your co-founders. If you don't know accounting, and this is one of the things that entrepreneurs will avoid, parang lagi kong naririnig, ay, di ko alam yan, yung accountant kasi. Oh, kasi si accountant, ganyan, tatanungin mo yung numbers, oh, wait lang ha. You have to have it at your fingertips.
Yeah, Greg, may kasabihan yung kasama namin ni Felipe na finance professor. Yeah, if you do not do your finance, you will do penance.
Compliance is more expensive, more painful. So compliance and finance, minsan hindi alam unit economics. And again nga, because the business model is so convoluted, the cost structure is too high. So I think there needs to be a base, training of finance, accounting, and entrepreneurship and mindset. I think very important yung mindset. Na to balance the two.
Yeah. From what I'm hearing, parang all throughout the room, no, parang there's this emphasis on when done well, parang the triple bottom line can really work, and that sustainable finance, impact first investing can yield its benefits. And again, parang surfacing from this discussion, a lot about doing it well has to do with how you run your operations, basically how you run the business that's using the capital. And I think from the room, we have two spectrums. One would be the large companies who do their ESG, and then the other would be the startups who design from ground up to turn these models to become socially and environmentally conscious or impactful moving forward. Now, my question would be, what's harder? Like turning an existing enterprise, a large enterprise, to become sustainable, or to create something from scratch and then to turn it into an enterprise that actually hits the triple bottom line? Mm-mm.
To me,
Interesting
to
question.
me, it's not so much that question. It's a question. Well, that question is really a strategic question.
Mm-mm.
As an old mentor told me long, long ago, he quoted this. I don't know if he invented it or he quoted it. There are two basic strategies. One is doing well by doing good. Good meaning social good or environmental.
Mm-mm.
Or doing good by doing well.
Mm.
These are both effective strategies if done well in both cases.
Mm-mm.
But my limited experience so far in this space is that it's really up to the investor. Different funds have different metrics, different priorities, different what Jean calls an impact floor. So if you're finance first, which would normally mean do good by doing well first,
Mm-mm.
right? And so if you start off doing well, then maybe some of you will, as you get older, you become to take a bleeding heart also. And of course, different sectors have different return characteristics, real estate, real assets, structure,
Yeah.
from an asset class, I guess you call it that.
Mm.
Felipe asset class, no?
Mm-mm.
For investors. But then for me, I like to work with the ones who have a greater challenge, which is starting both, as Greg mentioned, both as an enterprise, with good management practices, we used to call it long time ago, before TQM and all that, and a good social enterprise and an impactful social business. Right? It's a choice, right? So some people will take the lower risk, or will take converting the already successful companies. Maybe some part of their portfolio will be allocated, whether it's a bank or financing company. Maybe they'll allocate 10% of their portfolio to this space, early, middle, and more advanced. So, ang daming dimension. So, kami, we're trying to do both. So, the fund wants finance first with an impact floor, although we still try to determine what the heck should be the impact floor. And the local, sige, we will help you do that, but we will focus on the impact first. And hopefully, our principal lenders will give us some part of their portfolio to bring these people up to maybe qualify for Greg's first year.
The first law.
Something like that.
Parang baliktad.
So,
Kami muna and then you. They graduate to Ignite.
well, pwede sabay. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's really well, in the final analysis, it is very gratifying. But ang hirap kumita.
Totoo.
Hirap. Tagal.
So, tagal, no? Matagal. Depende sa principles ng fund.
Mm-mm.
Kung ano yung kanilang appetite.
Correct.
And saan papunta yung bleed ng heart nila, whether it's environment, whether it's gender, whether it's agri, di ba? Choose any SDG, no? Kumbaga. So, but I go back to what my take from Greg is focus. Focus at what is important to bring them forward. Di ba? Dito muna. Tama. Lean. I call that a lean approach, right?
Yeah.
Customer discovery muna, and then company building later. Di ba? Something like that.
I think si Prof.
Yeah.
Felipe is agreeing to something. Prof. Felipe? Would you like? Yeah.
Thank you. So going back to your question, which is more difficult, the
Yes.
bigger company or startup?
Yeah.
What I have seen in Canada, and also the stories our students share here, and also I've been mentored to many capstone projects. Like implementing sustainable finance or sustainability, it really starts from the top, from the leadership.
Yeah.
If it's, and I have heard too many stories where companies or leaders engage into sustainability for compliance purposes. Just a checkbox. So it will be difficult to trickle down, but if the leadership is there, then it will drive the whole workforce. Now in startup, I've been fortunate. I have financed a few startups in this type of journey. The one I can't remember right now is in Vancouver. It's a coffee company. They source their beans from Guatemala. They help the community. The owners even adopted a child from that community. But it's very, very focused. And what we do, and I don't know whether we used to have this product called microloan, this loan, that the loan, it's not just money. Just like what Tito said, no, we need and Greg said, we need the entrepreneur to be well-rounded. We analyze the weaknesses, then we put a management plan. And the release of the funds is dependent on the progress on the management. Because really, it's, like you said, passion is not enough. Right? It is great. It is great. But we have to move that forward. So it became quite a successful product, because for me, what's the point of analyzing a company if you don't address the weaknesses? And that is really, I think, because nobody is perfect. There will be gaps, right? And that's what we put in: mentors, consultants, including that to make it work. And this company is, until now, it's quite successful. And also, I guess the success of this startup is that people who share the same values, they will support this company. So it is. I don't know if you are aware of B Corp certification.
Yeah.
That actually, our bank was the first financial institution certified as B Corp. I was part of that accreditation. I started gathering B Corp certified companies in Vancouver. First, there were only 7 of us. By the time I left, 40 already. So I have to ask them to find a different boardroom to meet, because I don't have enough space anymore. But among themselves, they were buying, selling in the community. In the Philippines, we have right now 5 B Corp certified companies. The first one is Hope in a Box. Thank you.
No, interesting. For me, yeah, agree. It's definitely leadership and the intent. What are you intending to build? Kasi you can get an existing company that's already successful. When you look under the hood, dami pa lang problems because nga they didn't build it right. But if the assumption is build it right, I think you can go either way. Again, it's a strategy question, right? But together with building it right, not only the compliance and the team in place, but really, again, what's the intent? Because building for mom and pop is different from building for scale. If you want to stay small, you build it a certain way. You're not going to invest in certain things. But if you want to grow big, there's certain infrastructure, there's process, there's team, that you can face naman the building of that. And so that's why when we assess an enterprise, we don't, when we make an investment decision, we don't make it based on a pitch. It's always, relationship building, and then maybe we have several conversations. They'll, ask for a coffee today, pick our brains. come check on them in 6 months. May nangyari ba? May pagbabago ba? Did they take our advice? If not, then, then kind of, so really the quality of the entrepreneurs. And maybe if we're looking at where do we start, no? We need to find these entrepreneurs kasi the pipeline is very, very slim. And many times, all the problems that we're seeing for reasons not to invest, whether it's financial or it's too risky or whatever, still stems from the entrepreneurs and decisions that they have made or did not make, or the team that they did not build. Parang we'll see enterprises that are 10 and are still kind of this one-man team, But you're also seeing naman that those who are still very young, 3, 4, 5, but already with a team under them. And I think that's also one of the main challenges. Parang they're working in the business rather than thinking of how do I duplicate myself? How do I leverage myself by getting other people under me? And so, going back to your question, the answer is it depends. What are we gonna find? It might be easier to start from scratch. That's the truth. If you are in a market that is already well established in terms of the model and the product. Kasi then, parang your market is already done, then you're starting from scratch. But again, entrepreneurs, startups need friends. And so that's why we need, we always say na parang philanthropic capital, it's risk capital. Kasi grants, you don't expect that back. But entrepreneurs have to learn what is capital ba? It's not just money, right? It's not just money to pay the bills. It is something that is in your balance sheet that you can leverage so that you can create value. Otherwise, if you're just getting money kasi your runway is very short and then you burn through all that money without actually having something in the end where you're already generating revenue, generating value, then you just burned destroyed value, right? So money has to be seen as capital to be invested in something that will, bear fruit later on.
So what I appreciate from this discussion, either on both ends, it really rests a lot on the leadership, whether an entrepreneur leading the business or the top management, deciding on what values they will operate the business upon and then align everything else. And when you have that capital, you really place it in the right places. Now, speaking of, since we're already discussing the concept of investment, and also incentivizing these kinds of business models to thrive in the ecosystem. And I think a while ago, there were also plenty of allusions to the challenges regarding the ecosystem. I think one of the biggest problems is catalyzing the triple bottom line in this ecosystem in general, whether for the large enterprises or even for the startups in the ecosystem. Let's now talk about right-sizing investments. Like, what are the important factors for right-sizing? Parang because a while ago, I think when Prof. Titos was also sharing about the challenge of, sige, may impact floor tayo. Pero, kailan nga ba talaga tayo kikita? When do we say that this is a sunk cost? When do we say that we continue investing? And how much is, or actually maybe not even putting a figure, but rather, what are the conditions to say that this investment is a calculated risk, and it's something that, okay, we're gonna do this so that we can achieve the triple bottom line. Maybe we can have that discussion in the room. Anybody can start?
If I understand you correctly,
What is the question?
Oh, what is the question? Basically, parang yung nature po ng investments that need to be done in this ecosystem. And how do we actually shape the capital so that it's something that will be para siyang part of the puzzle that you put in the ecosystem to catalyze the ecosystem to generate the value. So how does that look like? And how do you see it moving forward? That what's a good combination of perhaps putting things together in terms of capital? Yeah.
I'd go back to Felipe first, I think, when he talked about what works.
Yeah.
What works is the way I was looking at it. Is first of all, it's an enterprise. Therefore, to me anyway, the dominant mechanism is the life cycle of the enterprise, right? So ideally, we want to look at this. If your enterprise is in this life cycle, what do you need to move on to the next? For startups, maybe it's what do you need to cross the chasm, as they say, right? But if you have already crossed, what do you need to scale in scope or in with the value, more features or more customers, whatever. So if you look at where they are, then you say, okay, what kind of investment or funding, let's just call it funding more generically, can they absorb at this stage? At least that's our hypothesis. So if you are still in school, you're creating a capstone or a thesis, maybe you need research help from different multidisciplinary. So how do we help you do that? Let's say you already did a little bit of customer discovery. Maybe you did a Facebook or social media testing, multi-test, whatever kind of test, and you got a high level of validation, let's say. Then we have, okay, now you have to decide as one incubator, pivot, perish, or person, right? Then what do you pivot? Do you pivot your value or do you pivot your customer, etc.? So the earlier you decide to work on the state of the life cycle, the higher risk and the more conversations, as Greg said, you have to have with these people. So if I were to put up a fund, then I would say, how would I align my portfolio? I would allocate, let's say, 10 million fund na lang, a small fund, $10 million, right? So much of that should go to this. And this will be done working with others, academe, government, lot of philanthropic grant, etc. Then as they move along, if they accomplish the next step, as they said, okay, you have a statistically viable USP, right? You did your proof of concept, and this, okay, ito na kailangan mo ngayon. Right? Okay. Now, the funding for that could be of a different nature. It could be debt already, maybe. Then later convertible debt. So, according to the GIN, in emerging markets, debt instruments do best for emerging market versus established market. Okay. At least in their 2018 report. So, and then if it's in a sector such as, say, where the capital is mostly infrastructure development in nature, mas mababa yung risk, mas mataas yung return. Or if it's, say, in forest, timber related, maliit yung variance from, according to this report. Median is from 7 to 9%, while in another sector, it's from minus something, 8 maybe. So, there are many choices we can make as to what to focus on, what kinds of enterprises, which SDGs we want to develop, or enterprises with SDG focused enterprise you want to work with. Like sila Bien, say agree muna kami. Yun yung kanilang start. For some, maybe it's gender. Choose, right? But some SDGs have more complex mechanisms. Say, if you work on social justice, if you happen to choose SDG 16, patay ka bata ka. No? So, tama si Greg. Sa first year, wag mo natin pag-usapan masyado yan. Pag-usapan mo na yung negosyo mo. Right? Sino yung mga tutulungan mo? Sino yung health worker or whoever, no? Social workers who will work with you. Like si Ariel, police. Oh, dapat we work with the police kasi social justice having to do with drug rehabilitation or something like that.
Mm-mm.
Former drug addicts or former criminals,
Mm.
right? Or conflict
Mm.
conflict area. So,
Mm.
di ba? So sana merong generic part of that could that different ecosystem could collaborate on developing
Mm-mm.
again with the enterprise life cycle.
Mhm.
And then when they move into more specific impact sectors and advanced stages, then pwede ng market forces na. No? This invest
Mm.
will help them sell it to other different funds. But we can guide them. That's the best so far
Naka-arrange.
hypothesis we can make. Hypothesis pa lang, hindi wala pa kaming proof of concept.
Okay. And
Dun
in fact,
sa approach yan.
opo. And in fact, I was
So,
recalling what Prof. Felipe mentioned a while ago about the lower interest rates when done well. Your experience with Canada. Do you think the Philippines, especially with what Prof. Titos was saying about looking at the life cycle of organizations, are we ready for this locally?
I think that's a good segue on the lower interest rate. No?
Uh,
This one, my example, is actually happening in the Philippines now. There is this loan product called Sustainability Linked Loan.
Mhm.
It started in 2017. It was created by ING Bank out of the Netherlands, and it has become very popular. And like I said, we have two examples in the Philippines. Sustainability linked loan. I think this goes to around the ecosystem of sustainability. So a borrower borrows money for any purpose, property, equipment, working capital. Then the bank and the borrower will agree on certain what you call sustainability performance targets. Maybe water consumption, energy reduction, recycling. Annually, the borrower will report it to the bank. The bank will look at it. If the borrower achieves the sustainability performance target, there's a reduction in interest rate. If the borrower does not meet it, then it goes up too. It can go both ways. So it has become very popular, and in the Philippines, Home Credit, Deutsche Bank lent money to Home Credit, and you can see you can be very creative. The sustainability performance target was for Home Credit to provide more literacy programs. So you can be very, very productive. Singapore is also very active. The Development Bank of Singapore. If you check it, it's also happening big time in Singapore. Singapore, a good example of a loan to a small SME. They lent Development Bank of Singapore lent money to a egg producer, and the sustainability performance target was the humane treatment of the chickens. So
Wow.
the creativity is limitless. And I just learned recently that CIMB Bank is now trying to scale this sustainability linked loan really to SME level. Because honestly, majority of the recipients are bigger companies. The loan in the Philippines was provided by the Japanese bank, MUFG, for Ayala, of course. But now CIMB is now trying to develop a model that is scaled down to SME level, and that's out of Singapore. So hopefully it will trickle down to the Philippines.
Okay. Amazing examples. Go, Ms. Greg, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, no, sorry, so just to go back to the earlier what we were discussing. I also want to put it out there that social entrepreneurship is not a silver bullet. It is not the answer to all our social problems. There are certain social problems that don't lend themselves to an entrepreneurial model. Na kailangan government pa rin yan. Kailangan pa rin yan. More different kinds of capital. So just to put that out there, no, if we can find a business model, great. But if not, then we cannot take on everything. So the way investors think, the way we think, it's really again about unknowns, risks and unknowns. Risks you can price in. So that's the way we have a risk-based pricing tool. If you are parang the equivalent for SMEs, no, AAA, then maybe you get I don't know, maybe an 10% per annum rate. If you are IC, then maybe you're getting 25%. So very interesting what Prof. Felipe was saying. But I think it also boils down to cost of capital. Where are you getting your base capital, right? What's the acceptable spread? So that, what does your loan book need to look like? I mean, there are different things that go into pricing interest rates in terms of what you're offering to the market. So if there are funds out there that can provide these concessional rates that can then be at wholesale and that can be retailed, so that then groups like in the Philippines, for example, can offer us, okay, if you achieve these things, then you get a lower rate, then that would be great. But also if you can connect these practices to de-risking the enterprise itself, then that in itself, you can also lower the rate. But going back also to what Prof. Titos was saying, it's also about the entrepreneurs understanding what kind of capital that they need. Kasi hindi naman lahat yan equal. Equity is more expensive than debt. And if you just need working capital, you need for inventory, if you need for accounts receivable, then it makes sense to take out a loan. If you need something more long term, you're making a key hire, you're doing product development. And so to your question about shaping the capital, we need to understand, and that's why we don't have a one size fits all when we do our investment. Even the structure itself, it can be a joint venture, it can be pref shares, it can be common shares. I mean, it really depends on what they need, right? And how do we, if there's no fixed asset or immovable asset, what's the recourse? How can we be more creative with that? We've seen some examples of this already, right? Maybe you assign your receivables, you assign your inventory. Obviously, kami as funders, we don't want that. No? We don't want 2 million worth of bags or whatever it is. But it's just a tool so that the entrepreneur knows that there is a consequence if there's no payment. So kahit paano, if there's recourse, then we can bring down the interest rates as well. So again, it depends on what does the enterprise need.
Yeah.
And we can also tailor according to cash flow.
Okay.
I've seen some interest, some loan products where the cash flow on the enterprise side is bullet. Parang at the end, no? Parang let's say at the end of 6 months. Let's say if it's agri and it's a crop, no? Pero the way that the loan was structured was every month may bayad, principal and interest. So I think we need to be, more cognizant of that. Why don't we just structure it na maybe interest lang muna and then bullet payment at the end? Because that's when they're getting their funding. I mean, we have to tailor it according to the business model of the enterprise itself. And that's where, funders can be more creative nga. So we did a project finance deal pre-pandemic. And we even did standby letter of credit. We did, so parang we really had to see what does the enterprise need so that they can unlock. And that's the main question. No? If I give you 3 million pesos, let's say $50,000, what does it do for you? What is the impact? What does it unlock? What does it make possible? So that's always our question. How are you using the funding? And that goes to what was raised earlier during this discussion. What's the absorption capacity?
Yeah.
Bigyan mo ng $100,000, they don't know what to do with it. Hindi pala kaya. So, and that's part of the diligence, right? The due diligence. Do they have the absorption capacity? Does it make sense? What will they do with the money? What's the expected return?
Yeah.
Not return in terms of financial return, but again, if it's unlocking, if it's a key hire that makes a business development person, etc.
Yeah. Okay. From this discussion, I'm hearing two things. Yung isa parang how we also measure the impact. It has to be agreed upon between the funder and the enterprise, but at the same time, whenever you get capital, it has to be suitable for what that enterprise needs according to its life cycle as well. Now, something that something that's also important perhaps to tap into, especially now that we're talking about capital investments, funding in general, exit strategies. Like, when do you say that investing in this company is already a sunk cost? Especially that sometimes when you look at social and environmental impact, it takes a long runway to see before you really see the impact. When do you say that it's still wise to continue versus it's time to call it quits and let's mitigate our losses already, something like that.
If there's no other buyer,
Mhm.
it's really, that's a loss, right? It's not like you can exit. If the
Mhm.
enterprise is dying or dead, there's a zombie, and there's no other buyer, then you just write it off,
Mm-mm.
right? It's done. So when do you write it off? If that's the question, it depends. Are they still alive? Are they still trying something?
Mm-mm.
Does it look like? Because I mean, even if you do write it off today and by some miracle they suddenly become successful, then there's some kind of windfall. But for us at Exchange, we don't have an exit requirement.
Mm.
So because we understand that we could lose the money, and we don't know actually when they're going to prove their model, etc.
Mm.
Of course, as part of the diligence, we're taking a look at, does this make sense? Does it look like it could scale? Does it look like we could get our money back? But always we say it's zero or hero. And if it's zero, they no more.
Sorry.
If it's hero,
Pero it's part of it.
yeah. If they find external funding,
Mm.
follow-on funding, who's willing to buy you out, then that's great. But that's less on you, and diba? It's structurally, it's not like, unless you put it in the agreement, no, na parang at this point the enterprise will buy you back, buy back the from you. But
Yeah.
kasi parang if they're starting, they need permanent capital.
Mm-mm.
If they pay you, then the capital goes out, then they don't. That's less capital for them to make their models work.
Mm. Makes sense. Yeah. Prof. Felipe, Prof. Titos, do you want to add to that? Before we open for Q&A? Prof. Felipe, would you like to add po?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Very good. How about you, Prof. Titos?
Exit. I love the way Greg put it. Diba? Ano ba sabihin ng exit? If they're doing well, then you can exit. The fund can exit if it's a fund or a debt. You can figure out in your agreement, if you reach this milestone earlier, they're good. We have the option. You have, no, actually, the enterprise is the option. What do you want to do with that? You want to pay us off? Maybe you loved our relationship so much that you might offer us equity. Okay, then. Or you want to use it for some other expansion, different project. Pag-usapan natin. But I think tama si Greg really sa usapan lang. It's all about the relationship you can build, right? With them. If you're from the funding side, is it a win-win relationship? First of all, and inevitably you may even be able to monetize the goodwill that you gain from the relationship, as they do with their ecosystem, their supply chain, their value chain. And the magic of what good relationships brings, it's already for me a great impact. Just by working with let's say these weavers in Iloilo, suddenly they were successful in Iloilo. And then, even better, they were successful with weavers in Bohol. And then somewhere here in Abra, where there's a lot of political killing, parang wow. So you asked kanina earlier, Alex, when do you exit? You actually never, you can only do your best, hoping for the hero. And from the hero, the multiplier effect is great. And if you can be part of that multiplier effect, that's even better. But I also say that even if they fail, they've learned a lot. And some say one or two members of the team will actually do something else
Mm.
because they've gained experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if they fail many times, that's also good. If they're
Mm.
persistent,
That's also
they
good.
will parlay that experience to
Yeah.
some other, whether it's as an employee, as an employee,
Mm-mm.
or as government, political leader.
Mm-mm.
But then you can't claim credit for that, of course.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
it's something that happens all the time.
Yeah.
That's the 1% of the 99% perspiration that makes everything worthwhile. Hopefully, it can begin as you grow, you get it to 5%, maybe,
Mm.
if you're lucky.
Mm-mm.
That kind of what in tech they call the unicorns. No,
Yes. Mm-mm.
you may
Correct.
get a unicorn
Yeah.
and you can die happy.
Fulfilled naman po. Fulfilled din. Hearts full. And hopefully the Rolex on the hugging the tree will really be true.
Huwag na lang yung Rolex.
Opo, I'll always remember that ano na po, that imagery.
Yan, di ba? So meron ka ng quote from Felipe.
Yes, opo.
The
So in fact,
other
Seiko, ano na, yung ibang brand naman, Casio, Seiko, hugging the tree as well.
whatever.
Yeah. Opo. This has been really a very rich discussion. Parang I really appreciate hearing a lot about what the good practices and how on both ends, from the entrepreneur side and even from the funder side, everybody in the ecosystem is working together. We're closing the gap soon. So hopefully soon and even more in more industries as well. And we've heard of good practices as well on how the way that we measure impacts becoming more granular and specific to the impact that's also aligned with what the funder looks at and what the enterprise is actually giving. But ultimately, it all boils down again to the life cycle of the business or life cycle of the enterprise and how they can operate better, what capital they would need, what support they would need. So I think before we open for Q&A, let's take a photo first because Prof. Felipe will be in another meeting in a bit. So we'd like to make sure that this will be memorialized for us all that we did this discussion. May I request everyone?
While, sorry.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
sige po. May I request everyone to turn on their cameras first before we open for the Q&A. Yeah. Okay, I think let's have Prof. Joey, please open then po if you can. Justine, Maxi, Miss Michelle, Cindy, and Verani. All right. All right, sige. So I think Lisa,
Alright.
yeah.
All right. Smile, everyone. Okay, give me some time. Let's have another shot.
Mm-mm.
One more time. Smile. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. So now let's open the floor for questions and answers. And I think we have Dre who wanted to share some insights and also some questions for our panelists. Go ahead, Dre.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, profs, panelists. So it was a very insightful discussion, and I guess my comment and maybe at the same time a question is, I know we're talking about like triple bottom line and the impact and financial sustainability, but while I was hearing the thoughts, no, from everyone, I was thinking about a different approach. Like we mentioned that, the finance part, or at least sustainability or stability of it, doesn't happen overnight. And so is the impact, right? And so my question is, how do you sustain the motivation? And that is not just for the entrepreneur or the startup founder, but also for the investor, right? The impact investor. And I'd like to bring and share a point, maybe an initial thought on how to actually sustain the motivation part. And I'll allude to a research from Angela Duckworth. Like it's about mastery in experience. So in a gist, it's about like it's comparable to small wins in a way, like, because it doesn't happen overnight, the impact and the financial stability. I guess to move that motivation and to fuel it, both the investor and the entrepreneur or founder should get mastery in experience and get small wins. I mean, impact, I think it's not easy to achieve, and also financial stability. And unless you get those small wins, seeing, fruits of your labor step by step, gradually, that will drive motivation. But I'd like to hear from the speakers, like, how do you see that? How do you sustain? What do you suggest to sustain the motivation from both sides, investor and the founder? Thank you. That's all for me.
Sorry, I have to leave for another meeting. Sorry.
Huwag na, dito ka na lang.
Alam mo naman dito, Titos, di ba? Puro meetings.
Okay, it's an institute of meeting.
Yes, there you go. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Prof. Felipe.
Thank you.
Hi, good to see you, Felipe.
Thank you,
Great to
Prof.
talk with
Thank you,
Good to see
Prof.
again, Titos.
Thank you, Prof.
Yeah. See, I think Miss Greg or Prof. Titas. Yeah.
Sure, sige, because I have to go na rin in a while, sorry.
Naku.
So for us, when we invest, we look for persons who are passionate about the problem that they're trying to solve and are not passionate about their solution. Pwede kasing solution na parang, oh, it's this new shiny thing, right? Ito yung gusto
Agreed.
ko. But if you're passionate about, I want to solve the agri supply chain, I want to solve plastic pollution, we're looking for someone who is internally motivated. But of course, it's very important to celebrate small wins, as long as those wins are taking you to your goal. So parang at every step of the way, you're validating again where we invest very early. You have a theory of change. You think that if I do this activity, then I get this output and I get this outcome, which will lead to the impact. So at every stage of the way, you are validating that. If it looks like, mukhang my theory is true, then great. Oh, it's not true, then go back to the drawing board. But I think by nature, kasi entrepreneurs are problem solvers. They like the challenge. They want to crack the nut. And that in itself is what drives them. Many of them will not even say it's the money, at least for the social enterprise side. Kaya nga tayo nagkaka-bleeding heart problem. And so I think for that, that is not so much of a problem, the continued motivation. On the investor side, we start out with an impact thesis and an investor thesis. We have an impact thesis around agri, or we think that if we address nutrition, which starts from agri, we can address education in the long run and the high productivity of the Philippines, etc., etc. So there's definitely that built-in motivation also for the investors to find the entrepreneurs and support the entrepreneurs who are very much aligned with that impact thesis. So, yun, parang, again, in focus. Now, if you want to focus on oceans, if you want to focus on plastic, if you want to focus on that, then you find the entrepreneur. But definitely the motivation is there to continue going. And the question na lang is, if the entrepreneur gives up or wants to do something else because they discovered that this is not actually what they want to do, and that happens at a very early stage, parang 1 to 2 years in. So we tend to invest with someone who has been kind of at the problem for maybe 3, 4 years, 5 years, na parang they've tried different things already. But then again, that also goes to the fit of the investor and what they're looking for. And what kind of they want to support. If they want to support startup ideas, coming from the hackathons, that's a different mindset from where we're coming from. But yeah, I think it really boils down to that. What's the intention? Sa inyo, Prof. Titos.
I couldn't agree more.
Can I comment?
Ayun, Joey muna.
Can I comment?
Age before beauty, Joey.
Thank you. Age before beauty, di mauna ka. What I wanted to say, this goes back to the thinking about intentionality. Remember when we talked about impact first investing, one of the key parameters there is intentionality. Otherwise, you run the risk of mission drift. It's very easy. Like, Maybe some of your projects are making so much money. It's so easy to say, let's just make money. That's why the mission, that's why intentionality is important. And uh, one of the difficulties is how you measure intentionality at the point which Greg is saying when it's a startup. How do you measure that intention? What are the parameters that will give you the indication that there is strong intentionality or weak intentionality or mediocre intentionality for for the for the project? Maybe somebody who's been working on it for 2 or 3 years, maybe that's an indication of strong intentionality already. But there must be other parameters
Oops.
I
Wala.
think Prof. Joey was stuck.
shown how to access that, how to determine what is that intentionality. And
Mm.
maybe that's something that
Prof. Joey? Mm-mm.
Naghang.
Opo. Mm-mm. Yeah.
I've lost.
Yeah, ayan po, Prof. Joey. The last one that we heard po was maybe that intentionality, yung nakat po doon.
Yeah, maybe you working in the field can develop a parameter or parameters to determine what is how to assess intentionality. Okay? I now give the floor to my esteemed older colleague.
Thank you, sir. No, just to follow through on that, other than the milestones or the school wins, very definite business or business process or market or whatever indicators, outputs and outcomes, as Greg mentioned. To me, the intentionality is proven by having that relationship with Greg. Says it's so critical because it's from a management process perspective. So you have a plan, right? Say you call it an impact thesis, you call it a business thesis. There are milestones. So that's planning, and then the relationship. Hopefully, you build in a way to be eyes and mention celebrates and wins along the way. But the key, I think, where you can gauge it is when you review results with them. Not just a report, but actually sit down with them. Okay, so this is from the old planning, implementing, and control cycle of management process. The review of the result, why did you exceed? Why were you below your target? What happened? Was it expected? Was it something you could have planned for? So it's the review side, I think, that's critical. That's where you develop the thinking, engage the intentionality, because the entrepreneur's decisions on what to do next, that conversation is so vital to the growth of an entrepreneurial team, a leader, an enterprise. Yun ang susi. So, that is why many funders do require milestones. Because hindi report. Dapat kausapin. O, anong gagawin mo ngayon? Nangyayari ito. What next? Di ba? Parang sa case room. Why do you think so? Right? And so, what do you do next? So it's the action planning. So if you get that into that, whether you're social entrepreneur or any kind of commercial, yun yung susi. Doon mo makikita how their thinking grows, improves, how their judgment, and just thinking, but their judgment is developed. Yun ang commitment. Now, once you have that relationship, Dre, between the funder, some funders will have a very arm's length
relationship. Yeah.
Some ma-OC, kasama sila sa action, ano? But then depende rin sa organization funder. If they have that kind of intention, they will have the organization. They will have that, if you call it, product offer, right? So the price gets to this point, okay, you can now avail of what we might call management services or mentoring. So
Mm.
there's always mentoring, pero nag-iiba yung character ng mentoring. First, it's focused on the planning stage.
Mm.
Then it's focused on
On growing.
execution.
Yeah.
Ibang skill ang kailangan nila doon.
Mm.
Then it's focused on the review.
Mm.
Iba rin yung skill. Diyan lumalabas yung how the entrepreneur becomes a mentor themselves.
Mm.
To the, well, sometimes wala pang team.
Mm.
Dalawa pa lang sila. That's when they realize their gaps
Mm. Yeah.
in competency, in management,
Mm.
of course, in capital.
Okay.
So it's
It's
then
really-
when you exit, you feel bad. If you feel bad when you exit, that's good.
Mm.
Kasi there was a result, whether
Mm.
good or bad for them.
Mm.
Whether hero or zero, there
Mm.
is
There
progress.
is. Okay.
There is progress.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for that, Prof. Titos. And I think that was the perfect way to end today's roundtable discussion. And in fact, there's still a lot of questions. If our speakers are open, okay lang po ba if we send them to you para we can have this continuous discussion?
Nawala na yung dalawang magaling na speaker.
Nandito pa po si
Alis na
Jess.
ako.
Opo,
No,
soon.
I shifted to my phone because I have to go.
Yes, opo.
Okay, andiyan pala si Greg.
Andito pa ako. But
Opo.
thank you. Sorry, I'll take the
Go ahead po,
opportunity to
please,
say
Miss.
thank you
Yeah.
for having me and for this great discussion, to my co-panelists and to the audience. Sorry, I have to go. Alam mo naman, December na, dami nangyayari.
Maraming
Ah.
salamat po, Miss Greg, and Prof. Titos
Greg,
for spending your
Merry
afternoon.
Christmas.
Thank you, Titos.
Greg.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So,
Miss
We should
Greg.
have coffee sometime.
Yes. All right. So for today, parang thank you so much for everyone for coming here. And at the same time, if you have additional questions, we encourage you to send them to us, and then we'll find a way to actually see if in the future we can inspire another group of Impact First investing capstones and other capstones to also hold more conversations regarding this. And we hope that everybody will continue to be part of this space. And just to end for today, may we invite David Pagulayan, of the president of Sir Club 22, a student organization in AIM, to give the closing remarks. David?
All right.
Ano mo
thank
si
you.
Father Pagulayan ng UP noon?
Baka kilala ko. Usually lahat ng mga pagulayan magkaanak yan. So
That
thank
was
you to
my turn.
everyone. I do apologize for my internet. Baka maging choppy kasi I'm back here in Antipolo, graduating na rin for MDM 2024. Again,
Wala pala, congratulations sa
thank you.
MDM.
Yeah, thank you to all of us.
2024.
Congratulations to all of us. Yeah, MDM 2024, also president of Sir Club 22. And as we bring today's roundtable discussion to a close, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on yung mga rich na insights and thought-provoking ideas. Very quickly lang naman, as we close today and as we explore the powerful nexus of yung sustainable finance, impact first financing, and social entrepreneurship. These are the three pillars that hold huge potential to drive and transform change in the way we approach businesses, development, and investments. From very thoughtful panelists of Prof. Calderon, Prof. Ortigas, and Ms. Greg Perez, we gain not just yung knowledge, but also a sense of possibility. Parang we kind of know now the realm of the possible. And through their experiences and stories, we learned how sustainable finance and impact financing can serve as a sort of catalyst for social enterprises that can go beyond profit making and create more intentional solutions to social and environmental challenges. So like Prof. Daron mentioned, parang we can go beyond tree hugging. We can be tree hugger with a Rolex. And as Ms. Perez mentioned, business models are not these business models are not yet set, and there is a higher risk appetite but at the same time, investors and inventors are kind of in the same realm. Now we change the business the business as usual, which is extractive and exploitative, into something that's regenerative and inclusive. As Prof. Titos naman mentioned, that there must be a way for entrepreneurship to be inventors and monetize their inventions, balancing the risk, the cost, and the scaling. And the biggest question earlier is like, where do bleeding hearts go? Can they find their way home? How can you monetize a bleeding heart, ano? And one of the pinakang nakita nating matawag dito, common denominator is accounting is the great learning curve to social entrepreneurship. By doing, do you do well by doing good, or do you do good by doing well? And if you don't do finance, as mentioned by Prof. Titos, you will do penance. And so we see now the roles of financiers by helping the entrepreneur through their designing, their metrics, and their finances. And the role of the entrepreneur, the openness, the grit, and the determination to learn and to build their design metrics and finances. So in conclusion here, like the discussion highlighted some of the most pressing issues in our time, bridging the missing middle, the funding gap for social enterprises that are too large for microfinance and are too small for institutional capital, which can foster collaboration across different sectors in co-creating systems that are inclusive and resilient. And we also saw the closing of the chasm, as termed by our speakers, that SE and IFI is not a silver bullet, and there are ways to create impact. But if we are to close this gap, we need to have a statistically viable USP. And also, we need to identify yung exit strategies. If we're, and again, as Ms. Perez always mentioned, it depends. Is the heart still bleeding, or is it bleeding too much cash? So, and we're seeing that we need to have entrepreneurs that are passionate about the problem, entrepreneurs that are problem solvers, and as Prof. Joey mentioned lastly, the entrepreneurs should not run the risk of mission drift. Therefore, you have to measure the intentionality. So to our participants, your engagement and presence today are evidence of the growing movement, of the urgency and readiness to continue for solutions in impact financing. To our speakers, we do thank you so much for the valuable expertise and inspiration you've shared. You have not only informed us, but also challenged the way a lot of us think in the next generation of impact-driven investors and change makers. Finally, to our organizations, the Climate Action Lab, Circularity Club 22, Circular Cities Fellowship, and the Impact First Financing Capstone teams, thank you for orchestrating this event and creating this space where collaboration and innovation can thrive. To everyone, please have a wonderful afternoon ahead.
Okay, so thank you so much for everyone. Thank you so much, Prof. Joey, for guiding us all throughout the year, for Prof. Titos also for still being here. And yeah, that concludes our afternoon's roundtable discussion. And we hope to have more of this, hopefully in the future, but this time as alumni. All right, so again, Merry Christmas, everyone. And have a great day ahead. Okay.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you po.
Thank you, Prof.
Merry
Titos.
Christmas.
I mean, how do you do that there?
Thank you.
Salamat, salamat.
Salamat
Thank you
po.
everyone for attending.
Okay po.
Thank you, Prof. Titos.